Okay.
Welcome, Corby Furrow. This is so amazing to have you here. And I just want to see if there's any way I can pin your video so that you stay as our person that we can see. This is great. So I'm Katherine Hansen. We haven't officially met.
No, yes. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate that.
Excellent. So excited to have you here. So I'm part of the Empowered Women Circle, and as part of the Empowered Women Circle, which we'll share a little bit today, we are highlighting the self-love authors from this fabulous book that you're a part of, and all these
Yes.
amazing women that you now know and have joined
Yes.
the ranks of. And so our circle just really comes together to focus on our health and our well-being and our body, mind, and soul balancing and really healing all aspects of our life. And I think it's really exciting because that sounds exactly like what you do. So let me
Yes,
just
absolutely.
make sure I've properly introduced you. Your chapter almost made me cry. You went through a real trauma with losing your job 25 years ago, and then that tailspin. And then I really resonated when you said that your journey from that sense of worthlessness and that sense of feeling defeated led you to scatter the broken pieces and embrace who you truly are. I think I'm so excited to hear in your own words and your own voice more about that. So embracing the broken pieces that were causing you discomfort, finding the light within, finding the inner peace, and becoming a creator of your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Fabulous. And I want to, if we can get right into this piece about being the creator of your life, because I've had multiple conversations over multiple years, but especially over the last week with some people that I've been talking to about how do we help women understand that they're not in reaction in their lives, that they're not just I don't like to use the word victim because nobody thinks, oh, I'm a victim, but they're not just blowing around with what's happening, that they're actually making decisions and actions that have led to their reality. And therefore, they have the power to make different actions, decisions, and pathways to make a different reality in their life. So I'd love to dig right into that and get your wisdom on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So often, and I think even myself to a certain degree thought that, things just happened to me and then I just made decisions based on that. But what really happens is, like things can happen to us that aren't very nice, but it is our choices and actions that make the decision of how our life turns out. And I think a lot of the time too is realizing that we are given, a set of beliefs just from being raised. And then when we get out into the world, we get some more beliefs. And then everybody says, well, there's limiting beliefs on that. And I think it's just beliefs but we outgrow those beliefs. And then that's when our soul is kind of pushing us to try and find our authentic self. So when we make the choices, it's based on the knowledge we currently have, but that disconnect, from where we are to where we're going, the greater the gap, the bigger the unhappiness. So when we start to shorten that gap, the more happy we get.
Wow. So I love learning, and I love hearing something like I've, been in this self-actualization awakening process for, 5, 6, 7 years now. But you just said something I don't know that I've heard before, in that they're not limiting beliefs, they're just beliefs, and that we then outgrow them. So not necessarily looking at them as negative or dysfunctional, is what you're saying. Just looking at them as, I'm done with those now, ready to move on. Tell me more.
Yeah, because those beliefs were formed for a purpose, right? So they're for either our safety, for our survival, for where we were at in that point of time, and they served us well because that's where we were in the growth stage, And then when we start to move and say, oh, wait a minute, the world's a little bit different out here, and maybe what I'm believing isn't quite what I thought it was now, right? Because we're challenging those beliefs. And then it feels like then we do become limited, I guess, by that. But as we move on, it served its purpose. Now it hasn't. So now it's that grieving process of letting that go to let come that new belief that's moving in on us.
That's so beautiful. It gives me a whole different perspective on so I have 3 children, and I'm constantly thinking, what meaning are they making of this
Yes,
scenario? Because those meaning making frames are there for how the perspective, the lens that we see life through, and
absolutely.
trying to help them not have certain meanings around, things that interactions that we're having, or discipline, or tough
Yeah.
discussions. But you've given me kind of a new look at it. The meaning that they make may be what they need at this time in their life, and
Yeah.
that may be providing them safety and structure, and just helping them understand that it's not permanent.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, as parents, we try and protect them and help them mold their beliefs, but at the end of the day, it is them that gets that perspective in spite of what we do.
Mm.
And we have to have this journey of pain in order to find ourselves, if you will. And nobody gets out of it. Doesn't matter how well we're raised. Our kids are still going to need self-help and all this stuff just as we did, but that's the lessons, and that's the juiciness of life, right? And then when we can come from with these beliefs, right now a lot of us come from a place of fear. If only I do this, they'll like me. If I do that, then whatever will happen. But when we find ourselves and like say accept the broken pieces and come into ourselves, then we're coming from that place of love, where we can actually see and now I guess solidify the journey that we've had, because we've gained all the skills and knowledge. But now we don't need to please anybody, because we are standing in our own power, and we can go forward in life knowing that we are enough, and whatever we do is good enough, and that other people's opinion isn't going to shift who we are.
Wow. Because we're so grounded in knowing who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note, do you have, looking back now, having gained all of this expertise, education, wisdom, expansion around the personal growth piece and how to help others, do you have parenting advice for somebody like me? How old are your children, and what would be your...
My children are all, yeah, they're all grown up, and they're just starting to have grandchildren now. So that's really
Wow.
fun. But yeah, I think the best parenting advice is be present and honor what your kids are feeling, rather than us putting our expectations on what they should feel.
Mm.
It's all about hearing them and seeing them, so often. And I think back to when my kids were busy. I was, a single parent, and we're into so many things, and it was just like, I always felt pressured for time and rushing, hurry up, get your boots on, come in the door, put your lunch down, do all this, instead of just saying, hi, how was your day?
I could just
The
feel
rest,
the shift.
yeah, it was just like the rest of the stuff really wasn't important, but we forget and put the tasks ahead of just that moment of recognizing that I see you, that you matter. And I think that's the biggest thing, that we need to stop the busyness. And I think that's where, and the aha came for me as being a grandparent, is we see the children, right? It's like we have nothing else. So it's like, hi, how are you? And then they light up, right? And it's like, yeah, because we're not in that busy world. And I think as parents, we need to just stop and just sit for that. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, that's enough to say, I see you, I hear you, rather than I've got 100 tasks to do and we need to just keep going. And then I can see you or read you a bed, and thank God you're going to bed soon, because I need to get the rest of it done now.
You just said my life. I think the big piece I took from that was that honoring how they feel, because a lot of times we kind of like guide and direct and try and micromanage what they do, what classes they take and what sports they do and how they succeed at things. But even amongst that kind of encouraging them along, you can still sit back and allow them to have their own feelings and express their feelings and normalize their feelings. And I felt a real shift as you were talking about that, in terms of what I need to do with the kids. That is amazing. And you mentioned, and I'll feedback, I'll update how I've done, because I definitely need to do that better. Update, you were saying where you are to where you want to go, and the bigger the gap is from where you are to where you want to go, the more uncomfortable we feel.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I loved the part in your chapter that talked about core values. And I kind of think that those are related, you know, where you sit foundationally in your core values being out of alignment with, for example, your workplace, or where you're kind of striving to get to. And two things about that before I am so excited to hear what you have to say. One is, I was in a very similar situation. The American healthcare system is very different than the Canadian healthcare system, and my core values had a very difficult time because they don't shift. And so trying to shift into this more commercialized, business-oriented, commodity-driven healthcare system was really out of alignment, or is out of alignment with my core values. And trying to reconcile all of that has been a real journey for me. And a lot of the Empowered Women Circle women have heard those stories and will hear those stories. So I think that's why I was almost drawn to tears when I was reading your chapter about how that was happening for you. I could just feel it somatically. And in the Empowered Women Circle, we are working through a process where we're really aiming for that vision. And we, in our process, deeply ground into core values before we determine the next steps that we're going to be taking to get toward that vision. So there's so much common verbiage between what we're doing in the Empowered Women Circle and what you're talking about. So I would just love to open the floor and let you explain to us how you see core values playing into our life.
Yeah, I think, well, with core values, as you said, that's the grounding piece that we like to kind of build the framework from. And the thing is, with core values too, a lot of them is very emotionally tied, you know, with how we feel, what is meaningful to us. And so we can shift in our core values to a certain degree as we learn and grow and expand, right? Because then the meaning becomes deeper and we dig further into that. And I think part of it too, for me, learning now, looking back, is, you know, learning to stand within those core values when a company or whatever it is that you're with, a partner, whoever, isn't in alignment, is to stand in it and speak up for yourself. And either, you know, and can you leave that situation? Can you shift it? Can you bring new insight into it, you know, to make a difference? And I know it gets difficult sometimes because some people, like I thought I was, you know, well, what else would I do? Where could I go? Right? So you get that fear of attachment to where you are, thinking that you can't expand things, you know. So, and it is a reality. Like, say, if you're a single parent or, you know, you've got bills, you've got things to pay. So it's hard to think beyond that there could be something different. But until we, you know, things start to open up, once we really stand in our power, because we're not coming from that lack mentality anymore, you know, and we're really living what is true to us at the core of us. So I think that's been a big takeaway for me, you know. And that gap is that's coming to our true authentic self. So the closer we get to that authenticity is where we find that joy and that happiness, because now we're living aligned with who we are and who we were meant to be in this world.
And so, you know, when we've discussed this before in our circle, when we make decisions from that fear or lack place, I think what I'm hearing you say, those decisions are not aligned with core values, because they're more aligned with something external or exterior to ourselves, like achievement or recognition or finances or someone else's expectation of us. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to draw that sort of like decision from fear, and how we can really utilize the knowledge and understanding of our core values to our benefit as we move through life.
Yeah, because like when we come from that place of fear, that's usually because of beliefs and other things, you know, that, you know, I'm not good enough to break out on my own. What if I don't have that other job? It's not aligning with what's true for us. So we will sacrifice ourselves in order to keep us safe, to keep us secure, to, you know, not move to that next place. So yeah, it's about, when we're standing in our full power and owning that and know where we've got it, then we come from that place of love, like we talked about, where that we know where we're at and what works for us and what not. And that's not to say we can't have compromises and that we all got to go quit our jobs, but how do we live within our values given the situation that we have, you know, as best we can? And how do we honor that and get our point across, and even knowing sometimes that things can't change, but how do we be ourselves within that situation, right? Because again, it comes back to, like we talked earlier, that choice that we have of how we show up in the world, and that is our choice. Even though things happen to us, we have the choice to how to react to it.
Yeah. I just said that to my son this morning. He was so frustrated about having to get up early and go to school. And I said, we really can't change that, but what we can change is how you're reacting to it and the emotion that you're kind of ravaging your body with this stress of like, I don't want to be up right now.
Yeah.
And of course, to a 14-year-old boy, it didn't necessarily resonate. But as you work with women, I'd like to circle back to this. You've said stand in your power several times. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to hear more from you about how you help women stand in their power, how you help women who really truly can't see that they have power to control many things, not everything, but power to control many things in their life, tap into or grab onto those areas that they can control. And sometimes it's just the internal stuff, but often there's some external things, even if it's just a little, like I say, like a little beam of light. That's the area that maybe you only have 2% control over, but that's where you focus your attention, because that's where you can actually make change. So how do you get women to really tap into that when they really haven't come from that place of their life before?
Yeah, I think it's bringing into the conscious the patterns that they're doing and how that's serving them. And once they can understand that and see that, then they can start making a change and say, oh, this is what I believed. And then we can look at, well, what would be a new belief that you would like to have? And then we can go through a process. So I use coaching and emotional freedom techniques to help us with that, because that really gets into the subconscious to help move things along. And it's really dealing with what's showing up in the here and now, what's happening in your present life. We don't have to go back to all the traumas. We don't have to go back to, re-traumatizing or anything like that. It's like what's showing up in your life right now. And then what can we do about that? And so by bringing that to the consciousness and awareness, now we can start to make shifts and changes, because it's going to bring up the fears. It'll bring up the yeah buts. It'll bring up all the stuff. And those are the things that we work on when they come out. And so once those are cleared, you take the emotional charge out of what's, bringing those blocks in. And once you've got that, as Joe Dispenza says, is you've got wisdom, because now memories without emotional charge are now the wisdom. So now you're not reliving everything, and now you can be present, because when you're in the present, you're in the here and now, and that's where creativity and everything else happens. Because when we're living in the past of, it shoulda, coulda, woulda, or, they've held me back, we're still living there, and whoever did something to you or whatever situation happened to you is long gone, but you're still stuck there. So if we can shift, women to be in the here and now, and like say, remove the emotional charges that are with that. It's not to say we're going to be emotionless. It's to be properly emotional, as how we're meant to process things. So then then you have the true shift and changes, and now you can have possibility and creativity and now stand in your true power. Because when you're looking back through the rearview mirror, you're not going forward.
And you mentioned in your chapter a couple of times in a couple of different situations, there were people in your life that kind of held space for you before you even knew that you could do it for yourself. And I think that that's an important piece, that we're aware of, that, sometimes that there's someone or some people, or in our case, a circle that can really hold space, that allows us to realize our worth and our value and our enoughness before we even know that for ourselves. I think in your case, there was, a mentor, your husband, situations like that. And it made me think, all of us need that kind of space for ourselves. And drawing back to what you just said, those people will often help us interpret things that have happened or are happening without the emotional overlay.
Yes.
So that we can really drop into, what does this really mean? Is this a story I'm making up, or is this something I should be acting on, or what can I do in this situation that doesn't have that emotional overlay to it. Doesn't mean not feeling, but like you said, just kind of seeing it without the distortion of the emotion.
Yes.
And I think that piece really needs to be highlighted as really valuable, to be able to lean on someone or a circle or a partner, to be able to really allow them to create that space for us that we can then step into and expand into.
Yeah, I think most people have the support, but because we're so shut down, and that's what I've realized in my experience, was I was so hell-bent that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't worthwhile or enough, that I was pushing everybody away. I had lots of people who were supporting me, but I couldn't see that until I went through this. So I think there is always people seeing the good in us, seeing this stuff, but because we're looking through that filter of this fear that we aren't good enough, we can't even see them there. So they just wait, and when we finally invite them in, then it's like, oh, they've been here all along. But so much we push them away that often and then we have the expectation, well, when I'm really hurting, where are they? It's like, but we push them away so much, they don't know how to come back in unless we invite them. So it's just learning that, just being aware that so many people love and support us, and probably in ways that we can't even understand until we get to that place where we are clear and free of our thinking that's holding us back.
Mm-hmm. And that it's not like a destination.
No.
I'm just thinking, in our circle, we've talked a little bit about, we dig into, the difference between friendships and power partnerships. And what you're talking about is those people that are sort of willing to tell you the truth, to hold that space for you, to love you unconditionally. When you actually go to them and say, this is what I'm going through, not necessarily in weakness, this is what I'm going through, and know that those people, in my case, those women, will reflect what they really see, without the emotion, but in a way that is generative and, with positive, solution-oriented focus. And I just wanted to share that it still happens, I think, to all of us. I was talking with a couple of power partners recently, and one of them reflected, what I hear from you is the I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I got rid of that a long time ago. What do you mean the I'm not enough? And she's like, no, that's what I hear. You're trying to do this and this and this and this and this, and you're not recognizing that you're actually at the center of this.
Yeah.
You're kind of seeing it as, I'm not doing this well enough, or this well enough, or this well enough. I'm not enough. And I'm like, oh, wow, still, or again, or always. It's
and you think of, if it's like, if we clear out a pipe, right, there'll still be some residual around that pipe. And so that comes out, and it's like growth opportunities when they can point that out. And that's what I love about coaching and doing the EFT, because that's where we come from, that place of neutrality where we can hear what's going on.
Yeah. And so valuable to have someone like you around who can hear it, tap into it, and then provide a way forward. So tell us more about EFT.
Yes. Well, that's my favorite subject. Emotional freedom techniques. So what it does is using acupressure points instead of acupuncture. So it's using meridians like in ancient Chinese medicine and different things like that. And we're using the central nervous system. So when you actually tap on these points, instead of pressing, we tap on the points, and it activates through the fascia versus neuron to neuron, which is thought. So we're using both verbal and tapping, so we're getting thought and electrical movement that's happening in the body. Because when we're feeling these, I'm not good enough, and all these blocks, it creates an energy block in our system. So if you think of ourselves as a flashlight, so if everything's working, we turn the light on, it shines. If I take the battery out and put it backwards and put it on, the flashlight doesn't shine. But is the flashlight broken? It's not broken, but we call ourselves broken. The energy loop is just not where it should be. So, and that's what EFT does, is allow us to get the energy loops back flowing so that we can function as we should in the world here.
I love that description.
Yeah, I know, that's one of my favorite. Another EFT practitioner had used it, and it's so effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So we aren't broken.
no, and I've done EFT, you know, admittedly only once or twice, and it works, and I know you know that. But there's a lot of our listeners who don't necessarily know that. And can you, like, I don't know, can you break it down and just kind of show us, like, for people who have no idea, or have a video link or something that you can share, because people are looking at us going, EFT, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is what we do, the first level is called bronze level tapping. And that's, anybody can do that. And this is a great thing. If you're feeling anxious, nervous, you know, just a bit dysregulated, this was where we use this. And that's what I like, is that you don't need any special tools. We're all built to it, because our bodies are meant to take care of us. They know how to heal us. You know, and so often, you know, people will bite their nails, or, you know, rub their foreheads, or do things like that. So now we're consciously doing that, consciously helping the body. So what we do is we just tap on the side of the hand.
And everybody with us can do this right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we just rapidly tap. It doesn't matter what side you do. And then we just go to the eyebrow points, right where our eyebrows start at our forehead there. And you can do one hand, the other hand, or both. It's all right. And you just want to have a rapid tap. You can go slow or fast. It's whatever fits for you. Then you come around to the side of the eye. It's kind of hard with glasses on, but it's right on that bony part next to the eye. And then we go underneath the eye. Yeah. And then we can just take a nice breath.
Just deep breathing, right?
Yep. And then in the nose here, in the divot. And then we come to the divot of the chin. And we just do it in this order because it's easy to do. And then just underneath our collarbone, again, we can do both sides, one side. It's up to you, whatever feels good. Yeah, and you can just start to feel your body relax. And then underneath the arm, it's mid-body line, mid-chest line. Sometimes a lot of women will have sore points, and that's usually an indication that you're holding something stressful at that time. And then the last one is on the top of the head. And then we would usually do this probably for about another 2 rounds.
Okay.
And then, and then you can just feel the calming and relaxing come in.
And now, are we saying anything in our mind?
No, we don't need to. This is just strictly if I'm just feeling dysregulated. You can say, like, I'm feeling anxious, feeling overwhelmed, whatever it might be. And that's okay. That's the next level. But if you just need to get calm and tap, that's great. The other great thing is, because our bodies are built to help us, you know, it looks a little weird tapping like this or underneath your arm or wherever as you're going out in public. Our meridians actually run along the top of our fingers here. So we can actually squeeze, you know, right where that kind of moon shape on your finger is. So you can squeeze those points there. And it's a calming effect also. So it's like, in effect, tapping on the points that we've got. So if you're in a meeting, I have a lot of women who tap under their desk. They just hold their hands under the desk, and you can either tap or squeeze. We call it the squeeze.
They're a little tender. Those little spots are a little tender.
Yeah. So, or else you can do it one-handed too, just making sure you push on. So I often walk around, you know, if I'm feeling something, I'll just walk around the house like this.
So just tapping. So just tapping on those spots.
Yeah, just kind of pushing, on them. And then on the thumb, it's got to be this outside piece here.
Outside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little awkward to get to, but so there's lots of things that we can do to calm ourselves in the moment when we're feeling dysregulated. You know, I had this Christmas, we were going back to Saskatchewan, and the roads were really icy, and a semi had pulled out, kind of was pushing us off the road, and we were either going to hit him or the ditch. And luckily we kind of stayed along the side of the road. And so, of course, that whoosh of adrenaline came up. So I just started tapping, just deep breathing, and it allowed it to expand, because that's what happens when we're in a stress mode. You know, the cortisol starts coming in, the adrenaline starts coming in, and you know, often we have gut troubles. Feel it in our chest, because in our gut the serotonin is produced. So when we're under stress, it squishes it out, right, and adds all these other negative chemicals, if we will. And so by tapping, it allows that amygdala to calm down, our brain to start coming back online, so we're not like out there. and then we can function normally, and it dissipates that energy that we've had that whoosh of. So yeah, so I was able to just release that. Otherwise, I'd be shaking for a long time because that was a scary, scary moment. So it's great to have that in the moment. And it's, and now they've got so much science behind it. It can lower cortisol. It can, bring up the good DH hormones, regulate blood pressure. It's just amazing what this little tool can do.
Wow. And like you said, sort of safe for anybody to just kind of start tapping the way you just described. So it was, and so people can reverse or rewind this recording as needed, but it's the hands.
Yeah, side of the hands, the eyebrows, and then around the side of the eyes.
Eyes.
Under the eye.
Under the eye.
Yeah, the nose.
Nose.
The chin.
Chin.
The collarbone.
Collarbone.
Under the arm. And top of the head.
Top of the head. Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know we have listeners and people who will be listening to the recording who are kind of in your area. And so how will people get a hold of you if they want to access your services or talk to you or find out more about you?
Yeah, you can go to my website is radiantcoresolutions.com.
Okay.
And actually I've got, because with Zoom, I actually, 2/3 of my practice is over Zoom. So I've crossed part of the United States, all of Canada, some in Spain.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it's really nice that way. The only ones I see in person are actually in Edmonton here. So.
Okay. Yeah. So they can go to, and we'll post this link as well when we do the follow-up email and with the video recording. So it was radiantcoresolutions.com. And they they'll have all your contact info, or they can book there, or they can call you, find out more about how they can work with you.
Yeah, they can book a discovery call so that we can chat, because what's important for me is that we are a fit together, because it is about relationships, and everything's about relationships, right? So it's finding that right one that fits, because sometimes we're not always a good fit, and we need to make sure that that's correct, and to get the person to the proper growth that they need.
I'm just going to put that website in the chat too, radiantcoresolutions.com. Okay. That's awesome. So our Empowered Women Circle has been around for about 2 years. We get together kind of live monthly, and we have virtual links to come into that monthly live event as well. We've really started digging into a process of reaching toward a specific vision, a vision that's on the horizon, but not too far away, that we can actually achieve. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll all come together and celebrate having achieved our visions. We've got sort of a stepwise process with seedling and flower bud and flower blossoming, and we're working on tapping into those core values, holding each other accountable as we carry out a daily or weekly wellness practice, because the body is such a vital piece of the component of wanting to do what we want to do in the world. To keep our body really healthy is so important, and the mind and the soul piece along with that physical portion, so that it feels balanced, it feels tapped into core values. And as awakened, self-actualizing women, we really want to be out in the world sharing our gifts, as you do so brilliantly. So it's our hope that you'll continue to be involved in our Empowered Women Circle, and maybe bring us more of your tools and resources and expertise along the way. We would really value that and appreciate that, Corby. So
yes, I would love to. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Yes, it's been my pleasure too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I look forward to getting in touch with you again soon.
Awesome.
Okay, we're going to go back to making sure we know all of the upcoming some has a lot going on, so we're tapping back into some more of Corby's resources. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually I've got, I'm talking to Business Professional Women's Group in May during Mental Health Month to talk about how stress and that affects our, goal setting, our clarity, our creativity. So that's going to be really exciting. I've got some introduction to EFT workshops. I'm doing one in Saskatchewan in May 25th. And then we've got one coming up in June in Edmonton here. And then also a Flourish wellness workshop that's including some other collaborative partners there. And then we also have a coaching program for executive women, Women in Power and Influence, happening in June. So yeah, lots going on. So really excited to be able to share that with people. And I will have the dates are on my website there for more information.
Oh, amazing. So they can go on over to radiantcoresolutions.com and find out all of that information so that they can get in touch with you. And
Yes.
like I said, I am really holding for us to maintain a connection with you, for our Empowered Women Circle to continue to have you as a resource, and to hopefully see you at some of our virtual meetings, or if I can get up to Alberta, which I do on occasion, maybe we can meet and have a coffee together. So it's
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to learn from the others that you have in this group too. That's amazing.
awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Corby. It's been an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure.
Yes, thank you.